Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Blindspot as well as the latest episode of the Blacklist. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you don't want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So for example, if you don't want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Blindspot, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of the Blacklist. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Blindspot. A lot of interesting things. It's interesting because a lot of it has a lot of connectivity to it. So first and foremost, obviously, like the big part of this is about this company EVC who does a lot of futuristic stuff. As Rich kind of puts it, kind of some Star Wars stuff. Well, the fact is they ended up making a satellite that could be weaponized to use missiles, and even Rich being like, wow, that's super like Star Wars. And basically it turns out that some codes were stolen. It's kind of interesting, especially when you look at the beginning of the episode, because it almost seems like maybe they're getting robbed or something, because like, oh, the security's there and got guns at people, and it's like, oh, hand over your phones and stuff. It's like, no, because they're trying to find out who hacked and stole like the missile codes. And it's interesting because obviously at first you whittled out all the different suspects, and it turns out, oh, it's this dude named Evan who kidnapped his son, and it's like, oh, his son has an insulin device, and it's like, oh, the codes must be stashed in that. And so it's like, okay, so what's going on here? Well, it turns out, sadly, that his mom, Scarlett, is actually the bad guy in the situation, and the reason why Evan took his son is because he was trying to get away from her, but all the evidence, like, she put it all and made it look like Evan was the one behind everything. Interestingly enough, the actress playing her is Elizabeth Mitchell, which things are best know her from Juliet in Lost, and I'm blanking on her character's name from Revolution. If you've never seen Revolution, it's a short-lived show. But I think she's in The Expanse too. I think I saw her, like, I've never watched the show, but I think I saw her in a commercial for it one time. Nevertheless. So that's cool, but it's kind of sad because it's interesting because this whole case is happening while Kurt's obviously dealing with his own mother issues. And in the end, obviously she loves her son, and, when the time came for it, like, obviously she was trying to be like, oh, like, the fact of the matter is your dad's a bad guy and everything, which is kind of shitty. But I guess for her, it's like, well, obviously I don't want you to look at me like the bad guy, so just make you look at your dad like the bad guy. But the fact is, I love you a lot, and at the end of the day, I guess in her mind, I was like, she'll get away with everything, and she can be together with her son, so, it doesn't matter in the end. But, they end up telling, the son the truth, because even Tasha's like, the fact is, you made some bad choices, and that ended up with your son getting involved in all of this. Do the right thing now, let your son go, and turn yourself in. Which even at the end she's admitting, she's like, I love you. I want you to know no matter what happened, like, that I do love you. That situation could have ended worse than it did, but luckily everything kind of walked away, resolved. Obviously Thomas got reunited with his dad and everything. Even that situation could have been bad because they had to kind of wake him up to kind of find out where Thomas and his mom could potentially be. But luckily, it seems like he'll probably make a full recovery. Obviously, like I said, the whole thing with Kurt and his mom, because it turns out his mom is an addict, and that's why she hasn't been in his life, because he ended up cutting ties with her years ago because he wanted her to get help. That's why he hasn't really talked about her a lot. It's kind of, even Rich kind of brings this up later on about the fact is that Kurt kind of has a role dealing this whole parenting situation, because obviously his dad ended up being the monster he was and having a very complicated situation with his mom. It's not like he won when it came to the parent department, Another interesting thing is that the actress who plays Kurt's mom, Linda, is the same actress who plays Darlene in Ozark. I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. Especially, the comparison between the two different characters, comparing Linda to Darlene, it's like, whoa, night and day. So it's just kind of interesting. Obviously, like I said, for Kurt, he has a complicated relationship with his mom because of her addiction and him trying to help her, fight it, but it just never worked out. And then just like, she's been absent in his life for so long too, so he harbors a lot of, he's kind of mad at her, obviously. And obviously we learn from her talking to Jane about this complicated situation, because it turned out she tried to get the children away from their dad, because obviously after Taylor Shaw, it's like, oh no, like she saw her husband for what he was. And when the time came, she tried to take her kids away, but Kurt was young. He didn't know what was going on. So he was like, oh, basically, his dad ended up finding out about what happened. And apparently he threatened, like, if you ever try to take the kids away again, I will kill all of us, you know. So she left to protect her kids, but then obviously part of her stayed away because of Bill, but also because there's, you know, her own addiction made it so she didn't want to be around them, because it's like Bill's demons were all on the inside, hers just managed to come to the outside, and her and Jane can kind of connect on it, because she's like, I could see that you kind of have that same thing of like having your own demons, and Jane kind of agrees. Obviously, Linda didn't want to ever tell Kurt this situation, because she's like, what will it do? All it'll do, you know, is bring up more memories. And I guess for her also, it's like, all it's going to do is remind Kurt that I failed him. So she felt like there was no good reason to bring this up. But, you know, Jane's probably like, because Jane doesn't want Kurt to completely abandon a potential relationship he could have with his mom. Like, understanding why she did what she did could help heal the wounds between them. It's kind of interesting because I love the entire episode. Rich just keeps bringing up the whole Kurt's mom situation. And he's like, am I the only one that's talking about this situation? And they're like, yeah, we're trying to deal with this orbital satellite that potentially has missiles. So we're dealing with that. And you have Rich being like, oh yeah, that's true. So it's not time to be dealing with, you know, Kurt's mom drama right now. I just thought that was kind of interesting. It was actually interesting too because Kurt ended up getting some advice from Tasha too, because, you know, he was like, because obviously his mom had met up with a dealer named Jason. She was supposed to basically make a drop off a delivery for him, but she didn't, and now she owes him $100,000, and they can't just take out Jason because obviously he's part of a gang, and someone else will just take over that debt situation and come after her anyway. So he's like, what should I do? Should I, like, you know, risk my future, you know, to help kind of basically deal with my mom's past? Which Tasha was like, yeah, you have to, because no matter what she's done, she has family, you know, and that is important. Obviously, it's very important to Kurt, even though he has the complicated family that he did. But he ends up talking to his mom. It's like, if you had told me, like, back then what you were up to, he's like, things could be completely different. She's like, but you were a little kid. I don't want to put that on your shoulders. But it's like, you leaving did that exact thing and put it all on me. Like, because let's not forget, like, obviously there's the complicated thing of like, oh yeah, in season 1 he actually believed his dad because he thought Jane was Taylor and all that. So he kind of forgave his dad, and obviously his sister was the only one that really, like, oh, you see dad as his monster, but his sister believed, you know, his dad's lies too, which is interesting. Now I'm sitting here thinking about that. I didn't even think about that connection till now. Like, obviously Darlene played, you know, the actress who plays Darlene, obviously, like I said, it's from, you know, she plays Darlene in Ozark. The actress who plays Linda plays Darlene on Ozark. The actress who played Kurt's sister also in Ozark. Just thought about that connection just now. Interesting. Kurt even saying, like, he believes the reason why he became an FBI agent wasn't just about his dad. It was because you couldn't protect us. And so he's willing to give his mom a chance. Like, he's going to pay off her debt, and he's also setting her up in a rehab center. He just, you know, wants her at least to take the steps going forward, because maybe this could help mend their relationship. It is kind of interesting because it seems like the only thing she took from that room was some money that Shepard had left her. I'm curious, is that really all there was? I mean, the whole point was to kind of get close to her, to kind of, you know, get close to Kurt. That was the whole point, which is interesting. Jane had said, like, oh, because she wanted us to meet. I wonder why. I guess it would have, like, if they met, it would have been a situation that would have made maybe her control of Kurt, like, you know, Remy's relationship with Kurt more. I guess that's the whole point, to kind of, for her to be another vulnerability that Remy could use and access to get close to Kurt or something. I don't know. I still wonder, like, the fact of the matter is that this is such a mystery part, and now it's revealed that it's that, like, maybe it's just about, fixing Kurt's family, but I still feel like there's got to be more here. There's going to have to be a twist where it's like, oh no, like, his family just all around sucks. It's like he gave his dad a second chance, turns out he shouldn't have, so maybe it's going to be a situation where he gives his mom another chance and he shouldn't have. We'll ultimately have to wait and see, because it just seems interesting, because that conversation never came up about, like, oh yeah, just the money she got from Shepard. They just kind of left it at that, so that's why I'm like, we never actually found out how much money Shepard left her, This could all be part of some ruse. She was just an informant, sure, but I don't know. Maybe that's all there is. Like I said, maybe it's just about bringing Kurt's family back together to a certain extent, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see. Oh, while this is happening, we had the situation with Kathy. She comes back in the picture and stuff like that, and obviously, like, Patterson and Rich are a little worried, and then, Patterson be like, do you feel bad about the fact is that we all three were hacking as the three blind mice, but she's the only one that got any jail time? And then Rich is like, well, she did kidnap us, put shock collars on us, and, was going to shoot me, so... And so I kind of don't lose any sleep over in Patterson. It's like, yeah, I kind of agree. And so, you even have Reed being like, they're like, so when are we going to tell you about what? And he brings up the three blind mice. They're like, oh, what is this? They're like, what? Yeah, I don't know. They're trying to act all dumb. He's like, cut the crap. It's like, and Patterson and him are going back, and Rich are going back and forth. They're like, no, I want to tell you, but he didn't. Like, no, going back and forth. And Reed's like, just handle this situation. I overlooked your three blind mice connection before, and now they end up tracking down Kathy, and it turns out she's getting married, and she wants Rich and Patterson to be at her wedding. I love that. And she's like, you'll say yes. It's not even a question of, oh, please say you'll say yes. It's like, no, you will say yes. And then it's a situation of, I love it, like, Patterson's putting on a dress, and then you have Rich jumping in front of her and being like, wow, what is this color? Is it pink? Is it tongue? Is it dog's tongue? Is it whoopee cushion? And he's like, how did Kathy get my sizes just right? That's so interesting. And lo and behold, she also put up basically a GoFundMe for her wedding, but no one put any money in it, so Patterson donated towards it. I love it because she was actually saying, like, oh, it's going to be like my $10 million wedding, because initially Patterson's like, oh, I'll throw in $10,000. It's like, that'll be enough to cover the DJ at all. And it's like Patterson ended up covering the $400,000, because it was supposed to be $200,000 from each, but, Rich doesn't have that type of money on him. And I love that Patterson's like, no, you don't have to owe me anything because I put you in that position. He's like, oh, that's very mature of you. She's like, plus I've got, like, way more money. I am kind of rich. And he's like, okay. It wasn't until later on I was like, that $400,000 is going to come back to bite Patterson in the ass, isn't it? I think it is. Because Rich won't get caught up in it because Patterson's the one. It was all her own money, so it's definitely going to screw her. I wonder, is Kathy going to, like, take that situation, back channel, like, the account, and end up taking all of Patterson's money or something like that? We'll have to wait and see. But I do love that Patterson's the one that lied to Reed about it, and he's like, wow, wait, you lied, miss kind of perfection and everything. She's like, yeah, because if you lied, he would have expected it from you, but he wouldn't expect it from me. And I'm like, Richard's like, I've seen a lot of different sides of you today. He's like, I like it. But then as the episode's progressing, I kind of got this feeling. I was like, wait, don't, like, because immediately in my head, I'm like, that 400,000, we don't know who she's actually getting married to, so it might kind of come back to bite them in the ass in that way. And I'm like, then there's the whole, like, Reed and Tasha situation. I'm like, wait, we're not making it so that Kathy and freaking Dominic. And it's like, of course. That's going to be interesting. I guess they're going to manipulate Patterson in kind of being like, because this is all part of Helios while also getting revenge. I guess it's kind of like a twofold plan of, like, it all kind of being connected. Like, taking Patterson down is also going to be taking down the FBI. Probably all that's going to probably help Madeline, while also helping make sure that Helios goes off without a hitch. Like, that $400,000 she donated probably will be used to fund something, and Patterson's going to end up suffering the ramifications for it. So we're definitely not done with this whole three blind mice situation, especially because she wants to get back at them. Because it does make you wonder, it's like, the entire time she never ratted on them. Is it because she really looked at them as best friends? It's like, no, she's just been waiting and plotting her own revenge. It makes you wonder, did Dominic seek her out? Was this part of Madeline's idea? Was this Dominic's? Like, how long had they been together? Like, I wonder, was this during season 3? Because Yeah, because Madeline hadn't. Yeah, because Madeline hadn't stepped up yet. I mean, who knows how long Madeline's been planning this whole Helios thing? Because the whole Kathy thing went down like last season, so it feels like it had to be like a more recent situation. I guess he offered her like, "Oh, you're going to get out of jail soon," and it makes you wonder: does Dominic actually love her, or is he just using her? So we'll ultimately have to wait and see. I'm so interested to see how that situation comes about, but you definitely see the complications already because it was all Patterson's money. None of it was Rich's, so she's going to end up taking the hardest fall for this situation. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as well. I'm sure Rich is going to try and have her back and try to fix the situation as soon as possible, but things are probably going to get ugly. Get worse before they get better. I did appreciate that little bit of that like flirtatious scene between Reed and Tasha. It's like, come on, dude. It's obviously there. Just like obviously they're reluctant because I'm sure like, both of them like still feel the feelings for each other, but they're just reluctant to kind of take those steps forward just because of just everything that's going down. I'm sure they probably feel weird about it because they're saying that like, oh, we're friends stage, but it's like, no, there's definitely something more there, especially the way you're looking at each other, joking about the fact is of each other snoring, and the fact is that Tasha gets toothpaste from the middle of the two. So I'm very interested to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of The Blacklist. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, this episode is about the third estate. Obviously, the 99% at war against the 1% is kind of what this is all about. And what's interesting, obviously, they're kidnapping like the children of these rich people so that they can obviously use this money, this wealth, and spread it around. That's kind of like the whole point of the organization. Obviously, Reddington points to group the FBI in their direction, and obviously another kid gets kidnapped. Interestingly enough, the dad, Voy, the father, that actor who plays Mr. Voy, I've seen him in something before. I want to say it's The Americans. I feel like I've seen him in other stuff too, but I think the thing that kind of came to my mind first was like The Americans. I'm sure like he was like the head of the FBI, like at one point in time in the show. Like he was like the main FBI agent in the show. Like that was his boss, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, so. But nevertheless, he was so stubborn about not paying. At first I was like, okay, do you have something up your sleeve? The reason why you're not willing to pay? It's like, I guess he had the most I guess it's a combination of, nah, you're not going to get a cent out of me. I'm going to get my son back, but I'm not going to do it by playing your game. So I guess because he's just super stubborn like that. And, obviously he works with the FBI. The FBI was trying to tell him, like, you should pay the ransom. But he was like, no, but I will work to get my son back. And lo and behold, his son ended up getting killed. I was like, shit. And, Haram actually felt bad about it because it's like, if I could have tracked down, the people, I could have saved him. But Liz is like, no, that was on him. He didn't want to pay the ransom knowing it can save his son's life because everyone else who paid the ransom got their children back. So it wasn't like it was like, we don't know if it's going to happen. It's like, no, it's a guarantee. He just didn't want to do it. And then when the next kid got kidnapped, it's like, he's there being like, no, you don't want to do this. You don't want to pay the ransom because at the end of it all, my son died because the FBI got involved. It's like, no, your son died because you didn't pay the ransom like you were supposed to. And for him, it's the whole thing of like, he's thinking he's doing the best thing because for him, it's like the whole thing. His thought process is like, if we don't pay the ransom, we show a strong will. That means when the time comes, like this won't happen to someone else. So it's about protecting someone else. I started thinking things might be suspicious because it's like, oh, this dude knows this family. So I'm like, are all the families actually connected and we just don't know it? It doesn't seem like that. It never really comes up. I guess he just happens to know the family of the final kid that got kidnapped. So it's kind of sad when it all, plays out. I had a feeling that the kids were behind this, especially just beforehand, just because I'm like, the fact that they went to the trouble of killing him in such a way like that, I was like, wow, did they really kill him? I was like, nah, something suspicious. But I thought all the kidnapped kids were involved, but it doesn't seem like that's necessarily the case. It seems like technically only 2 of the kidnapped kids were involved in this situation. At least I'm aware of it. It seemed like anyone else was. it seems like people, like, it seems like a situation of they're all like spoiled, like they're all rich, not spoiled, but like they're rich kids who realize like, oh man, like our families are wealthy and we need to help other people because I guess they realize the privilege that they're from. Because it turns out the device they were using to, hold a lot of these people, one of the kids involved in this was, the dude Reddington went to go visit. And I love her being like, why do old men have to compensate for, like, basically they can't get it up in the future and stuff like that. And she's like, it's natural. And then Reddington's like, and so is cholera. And it's just, she's acting like such a spoiled little brat and just kind of like being disrespectful to Reddington. And he's standing out in front of the road waiting for her dad to circle back around in her car. She's like, dude, you need to get out. He's like, no. Oh, he's like, old men like me, we don't compensate. We just do whatever the hell we want. And he's just standing there. And it's like, oh, look, the car stops just in time. And he's like, look, looks like your dad has a lot, better reflexes than you give him credit for. But it turns out, like, obviously he had the device that they were using, but he doesn't sell it. It seems like his daughter either sold it or was lending it out to the people involved in this. I'm assuming she probably just outright sold it to them because, just kind of spoiled rich kid, I guess. What's also interesting about that situation was when Haram ended up getting kidnapped. That could have ended badly, but also like showed you how impressive like Haram is under those situations. Like the fact is he was able to kind of get himself free and he fought the dude off and ended up getting a gun. I'm like, yo, look at you, Haram, do your thing. I also love like when that guy was kind of being like, oh, who is, because Haram's like, oh, I can splice into their camera feed and stuff like that. And he's like, who is this guy? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, and introduced himself. And he's like, you are a very commanding guy. And the guy leading the operation was like, thanks. I also love that when Red kind of put this mission, like kind of gave this to them and stuff like that, it's like, obviously it's all going to point to, obviously it's like, oh, us going after the third estate, it's going to make Anna realize like, oh, we're going after her too. And he's like, yeah, that's going to be an awkward situation. He's like, I'd love to see her face. I didn't even love the look on her face being like, the third estate. They're like, have you heard of her? She's like, yeah, I've heard of them. I'm like, dude, I love that. But obviously Anna being there during the whole operation, and like obviously the mother in the final kidnapping case was kind of like, she basically contribute to someone, so it's like she's in a position where it's like, oh, she can kind of have whatever way she wants because she wants them to storm in there to potentially save her son. But obviously Cooper was like, well, we don't know if that's going to work. Also, I love Cooper being so coy when Anna was like, why is Reddington giving you in this case? It's like, I don't know. I mean, who cares? We're saving innocent people. And she's like, yeah, but Reddington always benefits from something from a situation like this. What is he getting out of this? It's like, I don't know. Maybe it's something, or maybe it's a target. I love him. Look at him being all cheeky and playing coy. But nevertheless, getting back to what I was saying, like Harold wanted to kind of handle things a certain way because obviously Haram was in there and they want to make sure that this kidnapped boy doesn't end up being caught in this. But obviously, you have Anna being like, no, let's go in there because, she wants the third estate kind of removed from the situation because you're like, okay, so you're trying to cover your own tracks by kind of like letting the situation play out the way it is. Sadly for the mom, she didn't realize, like, obviously she didn't know what Haram had found out was like, obviously they're a part of all this. And sadly, her kind of pushing him to do this ended with her son dying. Because she wanted to handle things her way, like it could have ended very differently. So inadvertently, she ended up killing her own son, sadly. And obviously, Boy, he inadvertently killed his own son by doing things the way he did. But to be fair, like the son knew, like his dad would never pay. That's why he did the whole faking his own death situation. I guess it was his way of kind of making his dad pay because it's like, he sees the kind of stuff that his dad does when there's so many people out there in need, and his dad, like the fact is, even under these circumstances, like it probably would have slightly changed his opinion on his dad, but he knew his dad wouldn't be, and now Voy realizes like all the stuff that he pushed forward. Like, I mean, he's the one that told the family like, don't pay. And lo and behold, it's like that whole situation led to, hey, his son's still alive. Granted, he's getting locked up in custody now, but the other son didn't make it through this situation. So it's just kind of like a sad situation. It kind of sucks in the end. And it turns out, because Reddington meets with the dude who's leading the third estate, and it turns out he has no connection to Anna, so this isn't any step closer to figuring out whatever plot is that she's connected to. I even love Reddington being like, the fact of the matter is it shows that she's a lot more clever than I kind of gave her credit for. And he's kind of like, actually, and he's like, It's kind of messed up. He's like, but I find that a little arousing. Maybe it's the red hair. But it's interesting because it turns out because it made it seem like, oh, maybe Anna's against the fence. Like I thought that's why she was letting things kind of play out the way they did, because I was like, oh, she's trying to cover her tracks. It's like, no, she had Olivia leave behind the third estate file on purpose, because there is no connection between the third estate and her. What it is, it's that the third estate being the organization that it is, when the time comes, like from my understanding, it seemed like she was saying, like, when it's all said and done, the fact is the FBI is aware of this organization, so that when the time comes, when we do what we're planning to do in this country, it's going to lead to the third estate kind of being the fall guys in this situation. That's what the whole point of this was. And now she also knows that the FBI is definitely on her trail, like, obviously, but obviously she's got her eye on them, so they can't really make a move too much without her knowing about it. At the very least, she's more suspicious of them. She definitely knows, obviously, Reddington is trying to figure everything out. Like I said, I think she's still in a process of trying to figure out how much the FBI really knows and how much they don't know, so that's definitely going to be interesting going forward. Another aspect to this episode is Wrestler talking with Virginia's husband. It turns out Virginia actually sadly had died from cancer, and I was like, oh, is that like a cover story or something like that? No, it seems like she legitimately died, but Wrestler ends up bringing a lot of stuff up that her husband didn't know. It's like, oh yeah, Virginia had a daughter named Katarina. And it's like, if she had a secret daughter, she would have told me. But he eventually comes back later on, he's like, yeah, I kind of lied. The fact is, she did bring up her daughter before, but they had a very strenuous relationship. He actually looked Katarina up and found out, like, oh wait, she's a Russian spy, and so that adds this whole complicated thing of, like, because for him now he realizes, like, he knew nothing about his wife, because now it's like she had this other secret life, her daughter was a Russian spy and everything, because obviously it's like her and Katarina had a falling out. About what specifically, we don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the whole Reddington situation, the real Reddington. Maybe she played her own role in that situation, and that's why she has such an issue with her mom, that, like, maybe that's the thing, like her mom probably pushed her or put her in that situation, and that's why they harbored such ill will towards each other. So, but it turns out Wrestler finds out that there was a letter delivered to, like, this mailbox system that she had set up, because she was trying to make things up with her daughter. Like, obviously he doesn't know the details because it was something his wife never really talked about, but he sent off a letter because he was trying to, find this daughter of hers. And then it turns out, obviously, Donald ends up following it, goes there, and, like, surveillance footage from that day shows the person that picked up the package wasn't a woman, it was a guy, and it turns out it's Katarina's dad, which then turns into the whole situation of, like, whoa, wait, hold up a second, pump the brakes. So does that mean Katarina's mom was in contact with the dad this entire time? Like, was that how they stayed in contact over the years? Maybe that's them talking about their daughter? Because I thought the whole point was, like, that was, well, or is that suggest, or, because I don't know if I'm misinterpreting it, or is it, suggesting that, oh, that was Katarina's, and she was sending that so that Katarina would be the one to read it, but her dad read it, so that means her dad actually knows that Katarina's still alive. But he told Reddington, the way he's talked about her with Reddington in the past, it's like, he's like, oh, no, she's gone. Like, that's why I'm like, I'm sure I'm completely misunderstanding the situation, but that's interesting either way, because now it's putting Wrestler onto Katarina's dad, which is a direct connection to, a more direct connection to Reddington, because we haven't seen her dad in a while. I feel like he might have popped up last season. I know season 4 was one of the last times. I feel like I vaguely remember him popping up in season 5. I just don't remember. Yeah, because Liz went to visit him, didn't she? Or was that this season? No, it was this season she ended up tracking down her grandfather. Wasn't that this season? Or was that last season? I don't remember. It's all blurring together in my head. I do apologize. I forgot. I literally just let that slip my mind. Holy crap. She did meet with him. I forgot about that. So that's definitely going to be interesting. Oh, dude. Nevertheless, that's just all fascinating to see where that ends up going. Obviously, Wrestler gets closer and closer to this situation, and he's telling Liz nothing about it. Then you have Dembe's situation, which Dembe is having, conflict with how to handle this whole Reddington situation, because it's like, if he, like, some of the stuff he doesn't agree with everything that Reddington does, but a lot of times it's like the killing and stuff like that he's helped Reddington do. At the end of the day, it's helped save innocent lives, but now he kind of doesn't know as much, because now it's like other innocent people are going to die because of the secret he's keeping from Reddington of Liz's. And, he's left being like, I don't know where it seems like he goes to an old friend, it's about like basically like you don't want to have to compromise your own soul, and compromise the path that you could be down, essentially your purpose in life for this bond that you're making. But for, Dembe, his bond is his word. Like, he will always keep his word. And obviously, it's Reddington. Like, he owes so much to Reddington. But Red was like, hey, you can leave at any time. But if you do decide to stay, I want to know that you've got my back in all of this. And it's like, because he's like, yeah, I don't expect you to agree with everything that I do. So now Dembe's at that impasse, and he ends up bringing it up to Liz. It's like, you need to tell him the truth, because he's about to meet with Rudiger. And it's like, I honestly don't know what Red will do. Red even said himself, like, I'm not 100% sure. I think he knows that Dembe knows, and I think he's trying to put Dembe in a compromised position where he has to reveal who the traitor is. I think Reddington saw that, and he still sees it. Maybe that's not the case. But Liz is terrified to tell him the truth, because if she does, I don't think she's necessarily afraid of what he might do to her. Maybe that is the case, but I think it's for her, it's like he's the closest thing she's had to family for such a long time, and like to lose that relationship with him, especially because he cares so much about her. Like, I think it actually would hurt her if Reddington wasn't in her life anymore. So now it turns into a situation of Dembe's like, either you tell Reddington or I will. So I'm so curious to see what Liz is going to do. I think she is going to do it, or she's going to be reluctant. She's obviously super reluctant to do it, but I don't think she's going to do it, and something bad is going to be the byproduct of it. Maybe she'll straight up tell him. I have no idea. I'm so interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.